Good afternoon. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome here to the launch pad for another live launch coverage. We are counting down to liftoff of SES-22 from Cape Canaveral Space Force Station aboard a SpaceX Falcon 9 rocket. As always, if it's your first time here, welcome. My name is Zach. I'm the founder and host here at the launch pad, and here at TOP, it's our mission to inform and inspire the explorers of tomorrow, because we believe that space is better together. And you're joining us for our live launch coverage of today's SpaceX Falcon 9 Block 5, launching from Slick 40, as we said, at Cape Canaveral Space Force Station, carrying up the SES-22 mission, a C-band satellite, into geostationary transfer orbit. Today's booster is booster 1073-2 on a 46-day turnaround, and as we said, the payload is about 3,500 kilograms or 7,700 pounds. Today's booster, of course, will be tried to be recovered on a shortfall of gravitas, which is 666 kilometers downrange, and the fairings will be recovered out of the water by the support ship Doug, which is now stationed 782 kilometers downrange. Weather has been looking good. Last check, it was over 80% go for today's launch. A little bit of clouds, so it might be a little bit harder to see some of the ground tracking cameras, but they are proceeding through fueling very well here today. This is the 74th orbital launch attempt of 2022 and our first of 4 possible launches in the next 26 hours. So it's going to be a very busy 26 hours, and we hope you'll join us for all of those. We're live, of course, now for the SpaceX Falcon 9. Later tonight, we have Launcher 1 with Virgin Orbit. We then have a launch out of India happening about 16 hours from now, and then we will be back at Cape Canaveral tomorrow for the Atlas 5 with the USS F-12 mission. So a very busy 26 hours there, and then we'll have a little bit of a break in our launch coverage until some more there, but you are joining us for our live launch coverage of SES-22. As always, as we get started, let us know in the chat where you're watching from. We'd love to welcome you here. And if you have questions, you can send those to us in the chat by tagging us at the launchpad, and we will be answering those live. Today, they do have a 2-hour launch window for the mission, but everything proceeding well, that they are on track to launch today. We do have our TLP Rocket Chaser teams down there on site. If you haven't yet, follow us over on Twitter, TLPN_official, links in the chat there. We'll be tweeting out some photos from them. Super excited to have all of them on site. A really great rehearsal as we get ready for our big SLS coverage with Artemis 1 in just a couple of months when we get ready to head back to the moon. As you can see on your screen, SpaceX is getting underway, so we're going to be listening into SpaceX Mission Control as they target a liftoff time of 5:04 p.m. Eastern Time, or about 14 minutes from now. We'll get an update on the booster and the weather. Keep sending in those questions, and if you haven't yet, take a moment, engage that like button, and share out the broadcast as we count down, as it really does help us out. Again, if it's your first time here, welcome to Launchpad. You're joining us for our live launch coverage of SES-22 launching from Slick 40 at Cape Canaveral Space Force Station. Let's listen in to SpaceX Mission Control.
Host as we follow Falcon 9 taking the SES-22 satellite to its intended orbit in space from Florida's Cape Canaveral Space Force Station Launch Complex 40. Today's launch will mark SpaceX's 27th launch of the year and 90th overall launch from Pad 40. This launch also marks SpaceX's 6th SES launch, most recently having launched SES-12 in 2018. SES-22 will deliver TV and radio services in addition to key data transmission services to millions of Americans across the U.S. And despite the global pandemic, the SES-22 satellite was delivered in only 22 months. Now, currently, SES-22 is safely enclosed in the payload fairing at the very top of the rocket, and that is what you are seeing on your screen. This is a live view of our Falcon 9 vehicle. Now, as I mentioned, at the very top, we have the payload fairing, which is about 40 feet tall and 17 feet in diameter. To put that size into perspective, an average fire truck is about 40 feet long and 12 feet wide, so a fire truck would fit comfortably inside of our payload fairing. The fairing's job is to protect the payload from aerothermal loads, heating, and contamination during ascent. And once we reach the vacuum of space, we will jettison the fairing as the second stage will continue on its journey to orbit. Now below the payload fairing is the second stage, which is responsible for taking the SES-22 satellite to its correct drop-off orbit in space. Not only does SpaceX's second stage look similar to the first stage, which is the larger stage below it, it also has the same diameter, uses the same metal in the tanks, same computers, same propellant, and nearly the same engine. This allows us to use similar tooling, design, and systems to essentially build two rockets that are more reliable. The first and second stages are connected by the inner stage, which has pneumatic pushers that allow stage separation during flight. The inner stage also houses the 10th engine connected to the second stage, called the Merlin vacuum engine, or what you'll hear us call the MVAC engine. The bottom 2/3 of the vehicle is the first stage and is the primary part of the rocket that gets reused multiple times. On the bottom of the first stage are 9 Merlin M1D engines that accelerate the vehicle through the Earth's atmosphere and into various orbits in space. Now, the first stage and both the fairing halves are flying for the second time on this mission. We will be attempting to recover these rocket parts for a second time today using our drone ship, a shortfall of Gravitas, which is what you are seeing on your screen. And for the recovery of the fairing halves, we will be using our recovery ship, Doug. Now, liftoff is currently set for 5:04 p.m. Eastern Time. So let's learn a little bit more about our customer and the mission.
Get ready as SES-22 embarks on its journey to space on a SpaceX rocket to deliver TV and radio experiences as well as data transmission services to millions of Americans in the U.S.
And if you're just joining us, welcome here. We are counting down T-minus 9 minutes, 45 seconds and counting until liftoff of SES-22 from Cape Canaveral Space Force Station. SpaceX's Falcon 9 Block 5 is on the pad, fueled up, ready to go. This will be the 161st Falcon 9 launch, the 99th Falcon 9 flight with a flight-proven booster. So sometime in early July, we will see that number 100. This is SpaceX's 27th launch of 2022, their 103rd reflight of a booster, and their 25th reflight of a booster in 2022. This is their 89th launch from Slick 40 at Cape Canaveral, and their going for their 53rd consecutive landing. And as we said when we got the show started here, this is the 74th orbital launch of 2022, and we are officially hitting that halfway mark of the year, and we have a jam-packed second half of the year with the return of Falcon Heavy, with the introduction of the first ever SLS flight. Maybe we'll see the Terran 1. We're going to see more Astra. We're going to see Relativity come on, more Rocket Lab. It's going to be a very busy second half of the year, so make sure you've engaged that subscribe button and turn on your notifications so you never miss another live launch coverage or space news as it happens, as lots of space news continues to break globally as we enter this next era of space exploration. We wanted to very quickly bring something to your attention. If you are a Starlink user, head on over to our Twitter. We'll drop a link in the chat. We did tweet out a thing. The SpaceX is currently asking for the help of people that are using Starlink dishes in the United States. They are trying to make sure that they are going to be able to maintain Starlink service in the U.S., but there is currently a change possible. Dish Network is working with the FCC to try to acquire that network, and if they do, Starlink will have at least 74% downtime in the United States as an average. So SpaceX is asking for people's help. If you're in the States and use Starlink, you probably got an email, but we wanted to tweet that out, and we can share you a picture there on that Twitter of the email from SpaceX, as well as a way that you can express your feedback to your senators, your representatives, as well as to the FCC with an easy link there. So definitely take a moment, check that out, read it up for what your thoughts are, and share that around. It's would be very sad to see Starlink have an issue of not being really able to function in the United States, where a lot of its service is currently being used. So definitely check that out. But if you're just joining us, we are at T-minus 7 minutes and counting until launch of SES-22 from Slick 40 at Cape Canaveral Space Force Station. We are entering engine chill, and we're going to listen back in to SpaceX Mission Control.
SES was one of SpaceX's earliest launch customers and has been a key partner in a number of firsts for us. SES was the first commercial satellite operator to launch with SpaceX back in December of 2013 with SES-8. This mission also happened to be SpaceX's first mission to a super-synchronous transfer orbit. Now, most notably, SES was also the very first customer to fly on a reused booster. SpaceX launched SES-10 back in March of 2017 using a booster that previously supported a Dragon cargo resupply mission.
Stage 1 RP-1 load complete.
Now, just 5 years later, SpaceX has reflown Falcon rockets 102 times. It is an incredible progression, and we greatly appreciate SES's support over the years in these efforts. Now, as far as the mission to space, in order to get SES-22 and any payload into orbit, the rocket has to not only go up really fast, it also has to go sideways. So as we ascend, we tilt the engines, and the technical term for that is called gimbaling, and that turns the rocket horizontally. Now, we're still going up, but we are also heading horizontally away from the launch pad, and that's what we call a gravity turn. The rocket typically needs to go 17,500 miles per hour horizontally in order to avoid being pulled back down to Earth and get into orbit. Now, to help demonstrate this concept, here is an image firing a cannon from a really high mountain. The cannonball will arc, and then gravity will pull it back down to Earth. And as you increase the power, the cannonball will arc and land further and further away. Now, eventually, if you could continue to increase the power, the cannonball will be going so fast that it ends up in free fall around the Earth. Now, gravity is still pulling it back down to Earth, but it's going so fast that it never hits the ground.
Pressurizing for strong back retract.
Now, this arc, which constantly misses the Earth, is called an orbit. So when we get to liftoff today, watch orientation of the Falcon 9 vehicle. You'll see that we go straight up until about T plus 10 seconds, at which point we will begin that shift in orientation, so Falcon 9 can go sideways really fast. So be sure to keep an eye out in just a few minutes.
Now, we did just see their strong back retract is now underway. That white claw right at the base there is starting to open there on your screen. And then that truss structure beside the rocket will tilt back about 3 degrees to prepare for launch. It'll tilt all the way back about 45 degrees during the actual launch sequence. But this is one of those final steps, releasing the rocket to prepare it for flight. At the T-minus 1 to 2 minute phase there, they will do a purge of all the lines in the strong back to make sure the pad is safe in preparation for today's launch. But if you're just joining us, we are at T-minus 3 minutes 45 seconds until launch of SES-22 from Cape Canaveral, carrying a communications C-band satellite into geostationary transfer orbit. They have a short fall of gravitas, and Doug are downrange, ready to recover the fairings and the first stage. A rare sight to see, a rather clean booster, this only being the second flight for booster 1073 on a 46-day turnaround, and those fairings looking nice and bright white with those logos on them. Something we don't see very often with SpaceX anymore is having those logos on the fairings. With the reusability, but this is one that obviously the customer requested it or paid for it, and that is what they are able to have, is that SES fairing on their screen. The C-band communication satellite is owned by SES SA, a Luxembourgian telecommunication company, and that will be launching for it. We're going to listen back into SpaceX mission control as we come down to T-minus 2 minutes, 40 seconds and counting. As always, here on the launch pad, let us know in the chat. We want to see a go, no go from our crew here. As also take a moment, engage that like button, share out the broadcast. Let's listen in to SpaceX mission control. Keep in mind, on the right side of your view is our own live feed. We will see launch about 10 to 15 seconds generally prior to the SpaceX feed, just due to the speeds of the internet. So keep that in mind. We kind of get a spoiler on our camera before we get the close-up shot from SpaceX. But let's listen in to SpaceX mission control, T-minus 2 minutes, 10 seconds and counting.
Stage 2 lock load complete.
And great news, propellant loading is now completed on Falcon 9. Next event we should hear is Falcon 9 in startup, and that'll be when the flight computers take over the vehicle.
Gas launch closeouts.
And now that we finished prop loading, we are venting out the liquid oxygen lines on that transporter erector. And you can kind of see that venting there on your screen as you see more of those white clouds around the vehicle. At the T-minus 1 minute mark, Falcon 9 will go into startup.
Falcon 9 is the startup.
And great call out. The flight computers have now taken over the launch countdown. Now just waiting the final call from the launch director.
T-minus 30 seconds.
Launch director, we are go for launch.
Great news, all systems go for launch. Let's watch as Falcon 9 takes the SES-22 satellite into orbit.
T-minus 15 seconds. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. Ignition and liftoff.
M1D chamber pressure normal. Pitching downrange.
And Falcon has launched from Slick 40 at Cape Canaveral Space Force Station, carrying SES-22 up to geostationary orbit.
Falcon 9 has successfully lifted off from Pad 40, carrying the SES-22 satellite.
Downrange 3 nominal.
And we have throttled down the engines on stage 1 in preparation for max Q. This is the largest structural load that the vehicle sees, and that should be coming up in about 10 seconds or so.
Supersonic. Max Q.
And great news, the vehicle is now through the highest amount of aerodynamic pressures. So with that, we will have 3 events happening back to back. That will be MECO, stage separation, and SES-1. MECO stands for main engine cutoff, and that's where all 9 of the M1D engines shut down and slow the vehicle down in preparation for the next event, which is stage separation.
And back chill.
And stage separation is exactly what it sounds like. That's where the first and second stage separate from each other. First stage will start to make its way back down to Earth, and again, we will be attempting to land on our drone ship a shortfall of gravitas today. And during that time, stage 2 will continue on its journey with the third event, SES-1, or second stage engine start 1. That's where the single Merlin vacuum engine on the second stage will light up, and it will propel the second stage along with the SES-22 payload to orbit. Now, in addition to these three major events, the fairing halves will separate about a minute after SES-1, so keep an eye out for that as well.
Nico. Stage separation. And back ignition.
And some incredible views there on your screen. We were able to see MECO, stage separation, and on your right-hand screen, you could see that MVAC engine beginning to light up and glow that red color there. First stage on your left-hand screen, those grid fins are deploying. That is what helps guide the vehicle back down to the landing zone. And we do have fairing deploy coming up here in just under 10 seconds.
Separation confirmed.
And there you just saw on your screen fairing deploy, and you can see on your right-hand screen the fairing, one of the fairing halves falling back down to Earth. Really cool view. Again, we will be attempting to recover the fairing halves with our recovery ship, Doug, today.
Acquisition of signal, Bermuda.
And just past T+4 minutes into launch today. In order to complete today's landing of the first stage, it will have a couple more burns to go. The next one will be the entry burn, and that's where 3 of the 9 M1D engines reignite. This helps to slow the vehicle down as it's re-entering back into the upper parts of the Earth's atmosphere. Entry burn is just under 2 minutes from now. It'll last about 25 seconds or so. And then these last and final burn for the first stage will be the landing burn. That is just a single engine burn. It's the Center E9 engine. Lights up just a few seconds before touching down on the landing zone. And these M1D engines have about 190,000 pounds of thrust. So just one single engine reigniting for about 20-30 seconds helps to slow the vehicle down just rapidly enough to touch down on the landing zone. Some really cool views on your screen. Again, on the left-hand side, what you're seeing is a view from the first stage vehicle as it's making its way back down to Earth. Your right-hand screen is a view on the second stage looking at our MVAC engine. We're roughly 30 seconds away from the entry burn on the first stage. Stage 2 is still looking good on a nominal trajectory.
Stage 1, FTS is safe.
Stage 1, entry burn, startup.
And as you can see on your left-hand screen, those 3 M1D engines have reignited for the entry burn. Again, just a short burn helps to slow the vehicle down as it's entering back into the upper parts of the Earth's atmosphere.
Stage 1, entry burn, shutdown.
And as you see, those engines have now shut down. That concludes the entry burn. Again, next up for the first stage will be the landing burn. And the entry
Both
burn...
vehicles are on nominal trajectories.
Great call-outs, nominal trajectories for both vehicles. Now, the entry burn does help slow the vehicle down as it enters back into the Earth's atmosphere, but the atmosphere actually helps to scrub most of the velocity on the first stage. So that's why we can let it coast until we get closer to landing, and then we'll ignite that last engine for the touchdown just a few seconds before landing.
Stage 2 is the terminal guidance.
And we're just about 30 seconds away from the landing burn on the first stage, but we will have a couple events happening back to back. First
Stage 1 is transonic.
First will be SECO 1, that is second stage engine cutoff 1 for the MVAC engine on that second stage.
STS is safe.
Just a few seconds after SECO 1 will be the landing burn beginning.
Stage 1 landing burn startup.
MVAC shutdown.
There we had both of those events, SECO 1 and the landing burn beginning on the first stage. Again, attempting to land on
Nominal orbit insertion.
a shortfall of gravitas. And confirmation of good orbit on the second
Stage
stage.
1 landing leg deploy.
Expected loss of signal, Cape.
Stage 1 landing is confirmed.
And what an incredible view. As you can see, Falcon 9 has touched down on our drone ship, a shortfall of gravitas. This landing marks the second successful landing for this particular booster, having supported previously the Starlink launch in May. It also marks our 127th overall successful recovery of an orbital class rocket, including both Falcon 9 and Falcon Heavy first stages. And we also did have confirmation of good orbit on the second stage, so with successful second stage engine cutoff and first stage landing, we are going to be in a coast phase until just before the second relight of our MVAC engine on the second stage, which will be followed by payload deploy. So sit tight and we'll see you back here just around the T+26 minute mark.
And if you're just joining us, welcome here to the launch pad. We have seen a successful launch and landing of SpaceX Falcon 9 booster 1073 on its second ever flight, SES-22, with the second stage continuing on its way to deployment. Deployment expected at T+33 minutes, but we do have one burn, SECO 2, that will, SES-2, excuse me, will occur at T+27 minutes. If it's your first time here, though, welcome here at the Launchpad. We give you full live launch coverage of launches, dockings, undockings, exclusive one-on-one interviews, space news updates, and more. So make sure you've engaged that subscribe button. This is the first of 4 launches and possibly a 5th launch, which would be a balloon launch in the next 26 hours. So we hope you'll join us for all of those. Of course, it is a launch day, so you can head on over to our shop, use promo code LAUNCHDAY, all one word, check out the new shop there. And you can get 10% off of your order. And if you want to dive a little deeper, join us over on our Discord. We'll be hanging out in live comms following today's launch to debrief the launch and just have kind of like a post show. So you can join us there to talk more about space. You're looking at a live tracking shot of how far stage 1 traveled before it touched down on a shortfall of gravitas, and then stage 2 continuing its way to orbit, traveling over 26,000 kilometers an hour at an altitude of 175 kilometers. While we wait for SES-2 to happen, if you guys have questions, you can send those in the chat by tagging us at the Launchpad, and we will be answering those live on air while we wait here. If you want to jump the queue of questions, send it in as a super chat, and you'll be the next one there. We'll take a minute. I know there's a little delay, so send in your questions, and we will be answering those live. Later today, we have the launch of Virgin Orbit Launcher 1, and if I'm correct, their first ever night launch of a Launcher 1, so we hope you'll join us for that. Later, 15 hours from now, we have a launch out of India, and then we'll be back at Cape Canaveral tomorrow for the Atlas V, and we may see a balloon launch with NASA from Sweden, so make sure you've got your notification bell turned on to be notified whenever we do go live. Also love to hear your guys' thoughts on the new overlay. This is just part of it. There is more to come. So definitely love to hear your thoughts. If you guys like to see your name on the screen, we want to say a big thank you to all of our TLP members. You make this possible for us to bring you the best possible space coverage. So if you become a VIP spectator level or higher over on Patreon or Google or here on YouTube as a Google member, your name will show up there. We encourage you to do it on Patreon. They take like couple percent. YouTube takes 30%. So if you want your money going to us, head on over to Patreon. But if YouTube's easier, that works too. Thanks so much, John Ferris. I appreciate it. We also want to give a shout out to one of our members, Taniel's Space Weather Station, who has been a member for 1 year today. You are the first person to reach this level, and we are thankful for your support for the last year. You now have the first red helmet badge on the live chat there, so thank you so much for supporting us for that long, and to all of our other members as well. I am Canadian. That I am. Anthony, did you see the different objects in two different locations as the booster is positioning itself? One moving left part of the screen. That would have been ice. So there's normally ice that forms on those. So that's what you would have been seeing there. Do we have a special way of saying tomorrow? Tomorrow? I'm like half and half. I lived in the States more than half my life, but... If you guys have questions, keep sending those in the chat. We'll be answering those live. What time will the India launch? India is targeting a launch at 600 UTC or 6:30 p.m. Mountain Time. 8:30 a.m. Mountain Time. Let's retry that. The India launch is at 0600 UTC or UTC minus 600. Sorry, I'm reading this really wrong. Their press release is weird. Redo. The India launch is at 8:30 a.m. Eastern Time. There we go. That's correct there. T minus 15 hours and 11 minutes from now. Let's correct that there. And I mean, some people call the frozen ice mice, so we'll see what happens. And you're right, Bob, it never does get old seeing those landings as how quickly it goes. Great to see. Again, if you're just joining us, we are awaiting the SES-2 burn of today's SES-22 mission for today's launch. Falcon 9 has successfully landed. This SES-2 burn expected to take place at T plus 27 minutes. SpaceX will get their feedback up about a minute or so before that. Hopefully we'll get some more live views. Right now, stage 2 with the SES-22 payload is over the middle of the Atlantic Ocean, heading towards the coast of Africa on its trajectory towards deployment. Deployment expected just T plus 33 minutes, 20 seconds into flight. So we are halfway to deployment. Yes, Phoenix, we do have Falcon Heavy on the launch calendar. We are expecting, well, we were expecting up to 5 this year. Psyche, which was going to be the first one and pretty much guaranteed, unfortunately is not ready for launch. So they've missed their launch window and will be delaying a year of launch. So we are now guaranteed a Falcon Heavy pretty much next year. But there are 4 other Falcon Heavies, I believe all for the Air Force, or Space Force, excuse me, that are scheduled for this year. But we have not been given any time, dates and net zero times for those launches. We're keeping an eye on them. They are for kind of Q3, Q4, so we're getting there. So we're approaching when those are, but at this point, it's looking like the last quarter of the year, the last few months. So keep an eye out for that. We are hoping to be on site to see the return of Falcon Heavy, the first launch in 4 years, and kicking off a very busy Falcon Heavy schedule with over 17 on the launch calendar over the next 4 or 5 years. So Falcon Heavy's coming back, and it's coming back heavy. Thanks, Lori. Appreciate it. Grand, when does Jebediah Kerman launch into space with SpaceX? I'm not sure they're going to do it now that Boeing's done it. It's been done. That's old, so I don't think so. Maybe on a Mars mission, someone will take one with me. I know I've got my Jebediah ready to go, so if I go up, maybe I'll take them with me. Yeah, Gabriel, absolutely agree. The landing was pretty spot on there. Great to see them cleaning up these landings and getting them very, very accurate. This is what's needed, especially when we start going into Starship. We need to be able to do this because they want to catch ships and boosters basically out of the air with those chopsticks for it. We do have our TOP rocket chasers out on site today. If you head on over to our Twitter, we will be answering those live. We'll be sending out some photos live. We did get a couple photos of the Starbase Florida, if we want to call it that, Starbase, Space Coast Starbase site. The third piece of the launch tower has been stacked there, and it'll be very exciting to see that tower come to life here in the near future. Right now, NASA not allowing SpaceX to launch from Starbase on the Space Coast, but they will allow them to build it, so we'll keep that in mind. Can you say Space Force? There you go, the United States Space Force. If you guys have questions, you can keep sending those in the chat. We'll be answering those live as we await here about 8 minutes until deployment. Helen asks, have you seen a satellite train before? Not in person, but I've seen lots of videos and photos of it. But I am up in very northern Canada, and we do not have many Starlink. The Starlink kind of top of the constellation is about 100 kilometers, 150 kilometers south of me. So I'd have to travel south to see the furthest south place a satellite is. There might be one every now and again on the tight horizon, but not very common. John Fair is asking, when is the next crew change at the ISS or the next spacewalk? Spacewalk, we don't have anything on this docket right now because of the issues with the spacesuits. The United States spacesuits are no longer certified due to the issue that they're having, so they are basically grounded. At this point, they're investigating that and what repairs can be done. So the only spacewalks we'll see are any Russian ones that are performed, which are still possible. Next crew change we're going to be seeing is going to be in September. That's when we're expecting to see the next crew of Crew 5 go up and do their swap over. So we'll be awaiting for that. Tim says, how far north? I am in Edmonton, so I am in Edmonton. Did anyone else clap at home when Falcon 9 landed? It's so cool to see. It's just such a normal thing now. But I love the energy that you could hear back in SpaceX Mission Control there. Keep in mind, that Mission Control is over in California in Hawthorne. So they are on the other side of the continent, and they are still that excited to be watching live views, just like we are, as another launch is completed. That is their 52nd consecutive landing of a Falcon 9, 53rd, pushing that record further and further into the future. So it's been quite a while since we've seen any recovery failures. We do have a couple expendable missions coming up in the next 6 months or so, but when they try to do a landing, they know how to do it. We're going to take a couple-minute commentary break, but we should be about 4 minutes away from SES-2 startup. So we'll take a commentary break once SpaceX comes back online for that. So keep sending in any last-minute questions you have, and we'll be answering those. John says, if you ever get to BC, stop in for a visit. I'll buy lunch. Ashcroft. I've heard of Ashcroft, but I couldn't place it on a map. But absolutely, if we head out that way, it'd be great to stop in and see some people. We're hoping to do some TLP meetups also in the next year and a bit. Not even year, next 6 months. So make sure you keep an eye out for those. We're going to have TLP member exclusive meetups, and then we'll do a public meetup as well. So details about that will come out closer once we have an SLS and a Starship launch date. But we are going to be on site for both of those, and we'll hope to see many of you down there either pre or post launch to just see our community in person, which will be awesome. Okay, I know where Ashcroft is. Yes. Don't go that way often anymore, but doesn't mean it can't happen. Grand Oceanic Lines is asking, when will SpaceX do the first Starship launch, and also when do we go to the moon? So we are going to the moon with SLS with a payload. Well, we went to the moon 2 days ago with Electron. We will be sending Artemis 1 to the moon with cargo and test simulators and stuff later this year in about 2 months. And then we will be sending the first people there in about 2 years. They'll go to orbit, and then in another year after that, 3 years from now, we'll be landing back on the surface. For SpaceX Starship launch, we have heard today that SpaceX is working with Cameron County and South Padre and everything to prepare for the launch. If it was them, they would have launched it yesterday, but the county says they are currently targeting within the next 90 days. So you guys being members and sending in donations over on our GoFundMe, the link's in the description, will help make sure that we are able to be on site for all of those and be able to bring you guys the best possible coverage. Ooh, that's exciting, John Ferris. There you can see they've regained their telemetry. The speed and altitude just adjusted. Second stage with SES-22 now traveling 26,372 kilometers an hour at 270 kilometers in altitude. And we are about 2 minutes away from that SES-2 burn to finalize its orbit. And then just a couple minutes later, we will see that payload separation. Unlike on Starlink, today's burn is a little bit longer. It's going to be a total of about 65 seconds or so, roughly, is what we're going to see for that burn there. Alexis, are you staying live for all launches all day today? We will be live, but we're going to be live on their own individual streams. So we do have our Virgin Orbit stream scheduled. I believe our Atlas V is scheduled. If not, that will be scheduled right after this event. And then we are just working to confirm what type of feeds we'll be able to get out of India. If we can't get anything great, we will watch that over on our Discord. But we do hope to be able to bring you the India launch as well. We're just working to confirm that. But our Virgin Orbit stream is up. Our Atlas V stream will be pre-scheduled following this event. And so you can set reminders for those. We are waiting on confirmation from the ground teams in Sweden on whether the balloon launch will happen. And if it does, we will schedule that as well. Coming up just 2 minutes away from that next burn of the MVAC engine on the second stage. India is launching a payload on there. It is the DSEO, as well as some other payloads on their PSLV-CA rocket, their Polar Satellite Launch Vehicle. And they are launching that at 12:30 UTC tomorrow. So we are keeping a close eye on that. It's not a reusable rocket, but we are keeping an eye. This will be the 75th launch attempt of 2022 of any space agency.
Welcome back to the live webcast for the SES-22 mission. If you're just joining us, liftoff occurred at 5:04 p.m. Eastern Time from Launch Pad 40 at Cape Canaveral Space Force Station. Now, post liftoff, we also had a successful main engine cutoff, stage separation, ignition and shutdown of the second stage, fairing deploy, and first stage landing. Now, coming up shortly, we will relight and shut down the second stage engine one more time before payload deploy. That is coming up here in just a few seconds. Again, this burn will be about a minute long.
MVAC startup.
And an awesome view of that MVAC engine reigniting. This burn will last a little over a minute. And as a reminder, SES-22 will deliver TV and radio services in addition to key data transmission services to millions of Americans across the U.S. This MVAC engine has a thrust of about 220,000 pounds of thrust. And reigniting the engine helps take the stage closer to its drop-off orbit. So we'll reignite it and then shut it down and allow the second stage to coast for a bit until it gets to its targeted drop-off orbit.
MVAC shutdown.
There we heard that call out and saw a little bit of the MVAC engine shutting down. We are waiting for confirmation.
Nominal orbit insertion.
That's exactly what we were waiting for, confirmation of good orbit. So with confirmation of a successful second stage engine start and cutoff, we're going to take another quick short break, sit back and enjoy the space tunes, and we'll join you live to cover payload deployment in about 4 minutes from now.
And there we go, a successful SES-2 burn of that second stage. We are now at T plus 29 minutes. Payload deploy expected at T plus 33 minutes, 26 seconds. So about 3.5-4 minutes from now, we will see that. They will begin preparing it. As you can see there, where that burn was performed actually not only changed the speed and altitude of it, but also the angle. They did perform a small dogleg maneuver during that burn to adjust the orbital inclination on exactly where they were wanting to have this payload. Yeah, I did see that, Alicious, the Canadian YouTuber using Starlink. We just got our Starlink RV. We're also getting a couple other systems online in Starbase in Florida, and we'll be looking at using Starlink possibly for that as well. So we're going through our testing phase, but a great option. Again, though, for those that weren't here right at the beginning, we did bring up just a little story. SpaceX is asking for people's help with the Starlink system that are using it in the States. Dish Network is trying to take over the 12 gigahertz frequency, which Starlink uses. You can see our tweet in the chat there. If you click on that, it has more of the details. But if that were to happen, Starlink in the United States would go down on average to a 74 to 79% of the time. It would not be able to function due to the interference. So SpaceX is asking for help for that. It's going to the FCC. So on our tweet, we do have a link to how you can send a message to your senators and representatives as well as the FCC, all on that one page. We're not directly related to this story, but we wanted to at least present that to people, as we do know people have their Starlinks and are concerned about that. So definitely something to check out there. Yeah, that'd be awesome, Malicious. That'd be great to see you there. You ordered your van in January and still waiting. That's amazing. That'll be exciting to have. And yeah, Starlink, definitely a great opportunity, especially for us traveling, even internationally, being able to take it across the border. Be great to see there. Yeah, a lot of people thought that cyber, but surprise, they're coming back. They want to launch 5G service. and that is why they want to take over that frequency. But SpaceX publicly trying to get some support to make sure that that does not happen. But they are fighting over that frequency, as the FCC is the one to determine who gets to use it. So definitely check out that tweet to learn more and see how you can help speak to your senators or representatives or the FCC directly. It's really easy, just putting like your name and info, and it'll send it to the correct people. Are the Starlink satellites' reflective surfaces bothering ground astronomers, or is that whole thing blown out of proportion? Really great question, Sebtinus. Sorry if I said that wrong, Seb. It is a concern. They did change some of the material on the Starlink to help dim it down so it's not as interfering. But it's still a satellite in orbit, so it still can impact astronomers at times, but it's something that they're easy to track. They are trackable items. So if astronomers take the time, they should be able to track where it is and adjust their programming to not take pictures when like a train's going by, or to be able to edit it out. So it is possible to work that around. But as Elon says, we need to be thinking about the future, and the future is not ground-based astronomy. It is space-based astronomy. So that's what we're seeing. We are coming down to T-minus 1 minute until deployment of SES-22. We're going to listen into SpaceX Mission Control as we await deployment. If you haven't yet, take a moment, engage that like button, and share out the broadcast. It really does help. And let's listen in.
SES-22 launch webcast. We've had a successful mission so far, liftoff at 5:04 p.m. Eastern Time, successful landing of our first stage, and 2 relight and shutdowns of our second stage engine. Now we're coming up on our last major milestone, which of course is payload deploy. And that should be coming up here in just a few seconds.
Payload separation confirmed.
You are watching the SES-22 satellite drifting away from Falcon 9's second stage. And that confirms payload deploy. So with successful deployment of the SES-22 satellite, that will bring our webcast to a close. We want to thank SES for entrusting us with today's mission, and all of you for joining us. If this launch got you excited about space and you're interested in joining our team, check out spacex.com/careers to check out our open positions.
And there we go, and that is it. SES-22 on its way in geostationary orbit. And that will wrap us up for today. SES-22 had a successful deployment, completing today's Falcon 9 flight. If it's your first time here, though, welcome. My name's Zach. I'm the founder and host here at the Launchpad, and here at TOP, it's our mission to inform and inspire the explorers of tomorrow, because we believe that space is better together, and we hope you'll join us live in just a few hours for Virgin Orbit's Launcher 1 launch, their first night launch with another payload out of California. We'll drop that link in the chat there. You can hit set reminder, get notified. We're still keeping an eye on the India launch and the NASA balloon launch, and we will be back here for sure tomorrow for the launch of the Atlas V ULA. So definitely keep an eye out for that. But for now, this is it for us today. This is Zach from TLP Network Studios signing off. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.